Badass Attitudes, licensed here Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. The bus to Badassville is scheduled to come here for you. Pack your stuff. Turn up your energy with Wednesday Wisdom. Here again is Kelly Orchard.
That's right, Kelly Orchard here with Wednesday Wisdom. Hey, how are you? How was your holiday? Was it good? Did you have some fun? It's hot. I'm still in Texas, by the way. I've been here, I'm headed home today, and had a great time with the family. Pictures to come later, but we won't see the pictures on the podcast, so yeah, I don't know what to tell you. You'll get some pictures in my email, but you can get on my email list by, downloading my Badass Habits ebook, or this entire month of July, I'm actually giving away my book, Heart Lessons. And on Friday, Fruitful Friday, I started the whole, I'm giving this book away because this month is the 15th anniversary of when I first struggled with my heart crisis, the event that derailed my entire life. And it led me down this path to wanting to become a licensed psychotherapist. And so the entire month of July, we are on Wednesday Wisdom, especially, we're going to be covering the second S in Badass, the acronym. And the second S in Badass stands for Successful Badassery. That's right. That's all it means. It means success. So we're talking about a success mindset, and I'm giving you tips and tools to take charge of your mental health, because it is no more important now, or it's more important now than it even was before, and more people are finding it that it is difficult to manage their mental health. So I'm here to give you some badass tips, and today we're covering that. And I want to know, do you practice well-being in the workplace as well? So these are some of the things we're going to cover today on Wednesday Wisdom. And first I want to tell you, once again, July is Heart Lessons Month. I make it it's my National Heart Lessons Month. Anyone who hears me and grabs the link, you can get your free copy of Heart Lessons, and then you'll get on my email list and you'll know about all the other great things that I've got going on for you, and the free tips and tools to help you live a successfully badass life. But first, I know I'm going to change the tone a little bit, and we're going to talk a little bit about grief, because that is heavily on my mind. I grieved when I had my heart crisis, and so here I'm going to give you a little excerpt from Heart Lessons again, just to kind of whet your appetite to want to get the entire book. It's not a long book, but it does have 6 lessons that I learned when I was in my heart crisis and in the aftermath of it. And one of those lessons was lessons in grief. Now, what is grief? It's to feel deep, acute sorrow or distress. Other words for grief mean despair, misfortune, distress, pain, and regret. The stages of grief, according to Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. My heart failure led to grief, the end of the life that I thought I was going to have. I know grief. I've experienced it and have journeyed through it countless times, alone and with others. In the midst of a crisis, we don't always realize that what we are actually grieving the loss, mostly because just the idea of the word grief brings up images of death. Grief and loss symptoms don't always coincide with the death of a person or a pet. In this instance, my grief and loss symptoms developed over the loss of the life I thought I was going to have. The loss of pursuing a powerful career, the loss of summer, the loss of my financial stability, the loss of my healthy body and lifestyle. I think I've been to as many funerals in my life as I have been to weddings. Some of my most significant moments have been at a memorial service for somebody I knew, loved, and lost. The most profound loss in my life is that of my brother. He was only 23 when he succumbed to the injuries sustained in a car accident. I was 19 and we'd been fighting for a long time. It could have just been sibling stuff. I've been counseled for it, sought therapy to help me come to terms and unresolved guilt and grief. It's now been more than 30 years and I still feel the significance of his loss. And something that's not in my book, Heart Lessons, is the significance of a loss I had just 6 years ago when my other brother, my oldest brother, died from a stroke. He was 56 years old and lived in Virginia. And, I'd only seen him, I don't know, maybe once or twice a year over the course of the last 20 years because he had become a missionary, and he would go on mission trips, and he'd be out of the country for months on end. And that path led him to move to Virginia to start working for a company. So I didn't really see him a whole lot in the course of the past 20 years, but he did die from a stroke not too long ago, about 6 years ago this next month. So I do know grief, and grief will manifest itself in many ways. And it doesn't resolve around a physical death or a person, though. Yes, I've been grieving, and my journal entries in my book Heart Lessons show every stage of grief: the anger, the bargaining, the depression, the denial, and then later the acceptance. But like life, grief is not linear. We weave in and out of the stages, even experience them simultaneously at times, and it's an ongoing process. I worked as a grief counselor while I was in grad school, and then for quite a while afterward, and continued to educate clients that grief is real. It comes in waves, and symptoms will appear due to any kind of loss. And let's define loss: death, a medical diagnosis, job or career loss, a relationship, financial loss, housing, or children leaving home. We've had a lot of loss during this pandemic as well, and a lot of people are grieving. Any type of loss will present you with symptoms of grief. It's important to know the symptoms and be able to identify them. Once you're aware that you're actually grieving, you'll be able to understand your reactions and make decisions on how you might wish to respond to it. There are times where you just need to allow yourself to grieve the loss. I want to remind you that my chapters in Heart Lessons aren't sequential. In one chapter, you may have something that come up, and then we'll jump to one period to another, as a jagged staircase of crisis is also not linear. I may have made a choice to surrender to my health crisis, but it occurred in the midst of my ongoing symptoms of grief and the discoveries and lessons that I continued to learn. It's really imperative that you understand the family system and dynamics when you're in the midst of any type of life-changing or life-derailing event. It's not all about you. There are others that are feeling the stages of grief as well: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and then acceptance. So while I was feeling the sting over the reactions of those close to me, although it was painful, eventually I understood that they too were scared and in distress and merely acting out those feelings. Is this happening in your life too? If you feel as though you aren't getting any kind of sympathy, empathy, or support you need from those around you, you might considering wearing those shoes for a while. As hard as it is, take a step back and imagine what they might be experiencing while this event is occurring. For example, if you're the one who's been diagnosed with a medical condition, or it is you who has just lost your job or suffered a financial emergency, try for a moment to put yourself in the life of those who will be directly affected by what has happened to you. The same goes if you're watching your children leave home, or your spouse is getting ready to retire or has lost their job. It would be helpful to imagine yourself in their world. Only then will you be able to appreciate and empathize with how they're feeling and responding. Don't assume. That's part of a successful mindset. I want you to make that call anyway. I'm going to tell you a little story that's really on my mind. You know I love Sedona. By now, if you've been listening to my podcast, you know that I discovered Sedona exactly a year ago this time, really. Why just a year ago? I don't know, honestly. I've traveled the whole country in an RV, and for some reason, we had never stopped in Sedona and spent some time there. So I, last summer, went out to Sedona, and I have discovered that is kind of my sacred place to go and re-energize and rejuvenate and retreat and regrow. And so this time I'm planning to go again, but the summer is way too hot. I learned that not to go in the summer. And this will be my 4th trip to Sedona. And I thought I would like to go and invite some friends. I've gone to Sedona a couple times with my family, and I've gone by myself. And I got to say, I love both ways, and I could handle anything. I travel alone well. If I'm going to go by myself, I'm just going to immerse myself in the hiking and this any seminars that I could go to, or get some treatments, some Reiki or massages or spa things. Anyway, so I decided I would kind of put it out there with some of my friends. Do you want to come? And right away I got some yeses. And there was one specific friend that I knew I wanted to invite, but I was making an assumption on her behalf. She's a busy businesswoman. She owns her own business. She's just had a lot of recent loss, but she also owns a vacation place. And I just kind of, in my mind, was like, yeah, I'd love to invite her and I'd love her to go, but she's just going to tell me no. And my thoughts, I just didn't want the rejection. I didn't want to invite her and hope that she comes, only to be rejection for her to tell me, well, I don't really think it's a good time for me right now. How many times have you assumed that about somebody? Seriously, especially when we're talking about grief and loss. And we're not just talking about the death of a loved one. We're talking about whatever they have lost. And maybe you don't want to reach out to them because you think they're too busy or they're not ready for it or whatever. Don't assume. That's part of a successful mindset. So I flipped my switch on that whole thought process and I made the call anyway. And guess what? She was so thrilled that I invited her to do something different that she too has not done, with an opportunity to go and just chill out and relax and enjoy herself with some good friends. I was thrilled. She was grateful, made my day, and she said yes. So I just wanted to share that with you. It's like, don't allow yourself to assume either you or somebody else will say no when you want to make that call. Reach out to somebody. You don't know what they're going through. Grief is one heart lesson that, unfortunately, must be learned over and over again in a variety of forms. There are countless resources readily at your disposal for educating and understanding grief. Find a book to read or search the internet for grief and loss, and you'll have resources at your fingertips. So many people make mistakes that grief is only being related to death. Well, I'm here to tell you, don't buy it. Grief will rear its ugly head at any time, and it'll hit you like a tidal wave with something as small as a familiar smell or a fleeting memory of what was and will never be again. Surrendering is hard. Grief comes with the territory, and they hold hands quite well together. This is why I chose to put surrender and grief in the same book and right next to each other, because you won't have one without the other. Now, you must be willing to listen to your own heart to move on to the next chapter of your life. Detect what crisis is going on that you're enduring right now and how it is affecting your life. Are you struggling with symptoms of grief and loss? What are the symptoms that you're experiencing right now? When we define what we think and feel, we can then begin to learn to cope with them and manage them. And then be willing to seek support for grief and loss. Don't believe that death of a loved one is the only means to suffer grief. Find others who have suffered a similar crisis or loss and that you have, and then be willing to embrace a community of others just like you, determined to seek support, comfort, and health. That's one of the reasons why I ended up moving my office over here to Michelle's place, was for this exact reason. And I wrote this book before I was introduced to Michelle's place. In fact, it was this book that I introduced myself to Michelle's place, and we have established a relationship. And I want to share with you that I am starting a grief support group coming up in the month of August for Michelle's Place family members and for anybody outside as well. You don't have to be a Michelle's Place family member to attend the grief support group. Just give me a call. Contact me. I'll tell you how to enroll. It's starting up in August, and this is an 8-week class kind of a thing. And then we'll have some ongoing open things. So it's like, this is a closed group, and then I'll have an open one for you, because I believe that getting through the grief process with people who know and love and you can trust is going to be so much help for you and help you live that badass life that you're trying to live. That's right. I know. The S stands for successful badassery, and you've got to have a successful mindset in order to improve your life. And so this is these skills and drills for improving your life and self-knowledge. Let's pull ourselves out of grief, all right? I wish I could have a ding ding or something. Just pull ourselves out of this grief right now. But this S in badass stands for successful badassery. And I do have some fresh Mustang Mondays. It's all post-pandemic, and I'm really happy about that. It's like I want to give you some skills and drills to improve your knowledge. And I want to know, it's like, do you practice well-being in your workplace? And if so, I want to encourage you not to make ethics an afterthought. So, I subscribe to a lot of leadership and psychology and business newsletters. And, I follow the radio industry, leadership, psychology, mental health. I read a lot of different things. And so I always have kind of a different perspective because it's not all about psychology and psychotherapy for me. I also am in the business realm and organizational leadership. And, I follow a lot of different blogs and podcasts. So this one I found, and I thought it was really relevant. What is your leadership quest? It's like, and I'm going to read the article. I'm sharing this with you. This is called Triple Crown Leadership. That's who it's from, triplecrownleadership.com. I'm giving them full credit and props to them. Thank you very much for such a wonderful article. And it's called, What is Your Leadership Quest? It's time to raise your leadership game. What's your leadership quest? What are you seeking to do through your leadership? And where do you want to take your team or your organization? What kind of leadership does it take to build excellent, ethical, and enduring organizations? How can we lead ventures for both high performance and positive impact for all stakeholders? How can we avoid breakdowns? We know it's possible because we've seen it in action. Most people want to be successful and maintain their integrity and have a positive impact. These aspirations are powerful, but they're under attack from organizational dysfunction, ethical compromises, and unsustainable practices. Too many talented people work in organizations that don't live up to their values and aspirations. Too many leaders sell out and succumb to short-term pressures and take the easy way out. Perfection is not attainable, but if we chase perfection, we can chase excellence. Vince Lombardi. I use that quote in my Apple a Day all the time. So, if you want to focus on leadership as group performance, we view leadership as a choice, not a position, a trust, not a right. Leadership is a way of thinking, being, and acting that every single one of us, can apply in settings. Organizations don't expect leadership from the upper echelons. They've got to encourage and develop leaderships from all quarters. All right. You got to promote a pervasive leadership dynamic. I love that that's what I do, the quest. So where do your ethics lay? Are you one of those people that you've gotten the job because you have the skill sets? What is your quest? Are you chasing the power and riches, fame and glory, recognition or approval? Or is it crushing the competition, enriching the officers, enriching the shareholders? Or do you want to focus on your business and on sustainable practices and long-term value creation? What about ethics? What about the negative extremities and the social impact? There are problems with alternatives. Doing well by doing good is noble, but the win-win isn't automatic. It can be elusive. So choosing to operate ethically and sustainably is only the beginning. Organizations must figure out how to do that while achieving excellent results, maintaining the viability of the enterprise so that it can run the race. There's some tough decisions that are going to need to be made, and strong leadership and innovative thinking is how you're going to get there. And how do you get there if you don't know the tools or the skills? And I've got that for you. So I just want to share with you again. So a little bit more. This month I am giving away my book, Heart Lessons. And this is kind of the beginning of you learning a whole new way of thinking. Because 1 in 5 adults and 1 in 6 youth, ages 6 to 17, in the United States experience mental health illnesses each year. It's actually probably more of that. And it has expanded exponentially over the course of the last year and a half. but no one should struggle alone. So I am glad you're here learning how to be a certified badass by learning some of the latest research, treatment options, and advocacy efforts helping to improve mental health for all. I'm following what's going on and I am demonstrating it and bringing it to you. And I want to thank you so much for keep coming back. A success mindset is so important right now, and I know that therapists and counselors are in short supply, and you need a badass plan now. So what do you need? You may say, I'm not sure. I don't even know. Well, what have you lost, and how will you recover? How are you going to survive? What are you supposed to do now? You might be angry, afraid, helpless, negative, spiraling. It's time to discover your badass self and decide what to do next. Take charge of your mental health. The License to Be Badass program is independent access, home access, self-paced, and no obligations or pressure. It's not therapy, but it's very therapeutic. Your mental health should be your top priority today. After the year we've had, are you ready? I've got the toolbox for you to live a badass life. So many times I've been asked if my program is accessible online, and I'm pleased to say that yes, now it is. The License to Be Badass program is designed to give you just the right attitude adjustment you need to grow and succeed, and the tools required for perpetual growth to maintain your license to be your badass self. Are you ready to get licensed to be badass? I pulled together different psychotherapy methods from cognitive behavioral therapy, solution-focused therapy, narrative therapy, and strategic methods to build you a toolbox that'll help you identify your strengths and grow your confidence, identify your goals and cultivate positive measures to get there, weed out what's not working in your life so you can fertilize and grow what is working, prune back old behaviors and unrealistic expectations to make way for success, plant new seeds of personal and professional growth, create an action plan, focus on what's important right now so that you can live intentionally badass, learn your true purpose and passion, gain clarity, competence, and new skills, and achieve your ultimate goal. Remember, BADASS is an acronym, and the License to Be Badass program provides you with videos and worksheets that take you through each course. And you can purchase each course separately and go at a pace that is comfortable for you. Why should you invest in yourself? Here's the deal. License to Be Badass is flipping the format on the fear of failure. It'll teach you, guide and grow you, your family, or your team in a way that will flip their fears of feeling stuck. It'll increase fun and creativity, engagement, and give you the renewed energy you need to grow and thrive. Being your badass self doesn't just happen overnight. It takes perpetual pruning and work. And throughout this program, you'll learn that small, persistent steps will allow you to achieve your goals securely rather than attempt to fast-track results that never last the long term. And the fun part, upon completion, the entire License to Be Badass program, you'll receive a custom diploma to display as a constant reminder that you are licensed to be badass. So listen, first things first, I'd love for you to sign up. You can find out all about it on the licencetobebadass.com website. Look into the programs. Check out the programs and offerings that I have. You can check out every single thing about what the License to Be Badass program covers, entails, and everything. And I've given you the description, but if you want to go onto the website, I'd love that. And while you're there, you might as well download the Badass Habits ebook. Then you'll get on my email list and you'll find out about when I'm having badass certification classes, when the grief classes begin and start up, and when I've got more things going on digitally. If you happen to not live close to Michelle's place where I broadcast and podcast and certify badasses from. Meanwhile, the entire month of July, we are covering the second S in badass, which means successfully badass or successful badassery. And I am giving away my book Heart Lessons free because it is the 15th anniversary of when I suffered and fell from heart failure, which started the path of becoming a licensed psychotherapist and being right here on the podcast for Successful Badassery with you. You can catch the link in the show notes for Heart Lessons. And this is Kelly Orchard on Wednesday Wisdom.
Grab your Badass Habits ebook. Get started on your badass journey. Go to licencedtobebadass.com. Friday again, we turn up the energy. Tune in and tune up. Be bold, be brave, be confident, be badass.